And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we are talking about day number 13 of training camp for the Washington Commanders and the keynotes and who stood out from today's practice. Next, we're going to be talking about the most recent roster moves for the Washington Commanders. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jayden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about day number 13 of training camp. And so always like to start off with what Dan Quinn says to the press here before practice starts. I really feel like that kind of sets the tone here for this. And then we'll jump into just the roster, the injury updates and things like that, along with the standouts. And so just paraphrasing this with Coach Dan Quinn. And so the first thing coming into today's practice is that it was Military Appreciation Day out there. And so a lot of local military members and veterans and families were out there at the training camp today. And so Dan Quinn opened up about just what he's learned. And he talked about just an after action report. And so talking about kind of what went wrong, what went right, and just kind of keeping the emotions out of things and really getting back to the Commanders' standards. And so that's what he was saying that he was thinking about as he was coming into the building today. So it was good to see, just Dan Quinn talking about just the processing of things after a tough loss and just really what it means to stay on track with the standards for the football team. The next thing that he talks about here is just he's asked about the position groups that have stood out. And so he talks about the safety group that's really stood out and been strong. He talks about the corners and how that has been strong. And he's talking about the running backs as well and that group being strong. And so we know that the corners have definitely been strong. I've talked about this before with this team. It just seems like that the second half or the back half, I should say, of the defense seems to be the stronger part of the unit. Now, that could definitely change once we start getting into live games and things like that. But right now, it definitely does feel like that the secondary is on another level here. And so it was good to see that he acknowledged the safeties as well. And so we know that there are some talented safeties on this team. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And with the running back room, we know that is a talented group. We always talk about Corey Krosky-Merritt, which we're going to talk about him in a minute as we're doing an injury update around him. But he's looked great along with the runners that we already have on the team. And so it was good to hear Dan Quinn acknowledge that. Next thing is he talks about just taking pride in the special teams and wanting to get that fixed. And so he felt confident about it. And from what I have read about this, it just looks like that is what the Commanders went out and hammered today. And so really looked at the details of this. And so there were no pads today, just to be clear, but just getting back to the basics there. Next thing, Dan Quinn, he's asked about possibly bringing in a kicker for competition with Matt Gay. And he just said, look, it's a great question, but we're just not there with that. And so it just looks like they want to go ahead and give Matt Gay a chance to really figure out the techniques and things like that. But he feels confident in what he's doing. And so he did give us an update there with the kicker. And the next thing, too, he was talking about Jaylen Lane. And so he gives us a little insight into Jaylen Lane and just how he's been off to a good start. And so one of the things that he says about him is that he's been good with his quiet feet as far as going up and approaching the punt. And so talking about taking punts here from Tress Way, I believe, and just talking about how difficult that is when he's angling the ball and stuff like that. But he also said that he's also off to a good start as a wide receiver. So once again, good to hear from your head coach acknowledging that your rookie is off to a great start. And so no question about it, I do want to see some more from Jaylen Lane, but he certainly continues to show flashes here. And so the next thing here that Coach Dan Quinn did talk about here is he talks about going out and just going and just really acknowledging really the mistakes that they had there in this last game in preseason play and just how they want to get back to the style of play and getting back to those standards and things like that. He does talk about Mikey Samra still, and he talks about how he's taken a big step as a leader. I believe he's asked about him. And I love what he says, because as he says that as a leader, there's no gap in what you say and what you do. So I thought that that was a great line from Coach Dan Quinn there. And then lastly, with Coach Dan Quinn, he's asked about just the running defense for the team and just really what he saw. And so he talks about, there were some like run gaps that he liked as far as stopping the run. And then there was some stuff that he didn't like. And so it was good to hear Dan Quinn acknowledge that, because I was kind of like on the fence, just kind of looking at what we saw in the performance in week 1 of preseason play. I thought that it was something that definitely should be looked at. And so it was good to see that Dan Quinn acknowledges that, because yes, there were some plays where the Washington Commanders did look good in their run stops and things like that. And obviously there were some things that need to be corrected there. So he does give us a little insight to that. And so next thing, talking about Jayden Daniels here. And so I saw Jayden Daniels presser. This was after the practice. And so for him, I think it was kind of short and sweet. In Jayden Daniels, I mean, that's pretty much what it is when you hear him talk. But, he definitely is answering things, I think, with a purpose here, because he talks about, just finding ways to get better, even if he's not playing in preseason football. And so he is asked about that. He says that he is unsure, when he will play in the preseason. He says that that is up to obviously Coach Dan Quinn and Adam Peters to make that decision there. But he is always trying to find ways to get better. And then when he's talking about just the wide receiving group and things like that, and just trying to, piece it all together, because that is one of the things that is, or has been, I should say, the talk around the Washington Commanders is just the wide receiver depth chart, aside from Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. And so he says, look, his job is really to go out there and give guys chances to make plays, and everybody has to do their job. So giving insight there, talking about how he's been on the same page with Deebo Samuel since I believe practice number 1, where he hit that deep ball. And so these guys definitely on a good, kind of page here so far. And so we'll be talking about just how they stood out today. And so that continues. And then, just talking about Mikey Samra still, and talking about how Mikey Samra still helps him get better, how he helps Mikey Samra still get better. And so how they kind of push each other. And so that goes into what Dan Quinn has talked about with iron sharpening iron, excuse me. And so that is what Jayden Daniels had to say. And so again, it's a pretty quick presser after practice, but, confident as always. And so it's good to see that Jayden Daniels had another good practice, which we're going to talk about that in a moment. So next thing here, talking about the unfortunates. And so looking at the injury list right now. And so not at the practice today, or didn't practice, as Brandon Coleman, Marcus Mariota was out. You had Jordan McGee was out, Noah Brown, Javonte Jean-Baptiste was out. I believe I did see where it says that Kazmir Allen was wearing a no contact jersey. But the good thing is that Luke McCaffrey and then also too Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt were back at practice. And so I didn't talk about this after the game, but Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, I think he took a hard hit on his shoulder or something like that. And so he's fine. And it looks like that Luke McCaffrey is okay too. I did talk about that a little bit in yesterday's video, where I believe he was under the weather. And so it looks like that both of those players were back at practice today, which is a great sign. And so the next injury here, which is definitely unfortunate, is that the Washington Commanders lost Lucas Niang for the year here. So it looks like that he tore an ACL. And so that was confirmed. Unfortunately, this happened in the game Friday. Remember, we talked about this just maybe over a month ago, where he had just signed coming in from the Chiefs here, drafted by them, and then he played in 33 games. And so he was a guy that was definitely going to give us some, championship experience here from the Chiefs, and a guy that definitely you could perhaps slate in there for your depth chart. But now he is out for the season. And so unfortunate from what I'm reading about him, is that just potential. And so that is the key thing that I keep seeing around him, is just a young man that had a ton of potential here. And so unfortunately for this year, Lucas Niang will be out due to a torn ACL. And so next thing, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the most recent roster move here. And it looks like that the Commanders have gone out and they have signed Duke Rowley. And so this was after the Commanders did work some players out. And so it looks like that they worked 14 players out. And ultimately, they went ahead and they signed Duke Rowley. And so he is a player that has been in the National Football League for some time here since 2017. He played with the Atlanta Falcons. He's played with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then the last couple seasons, actually 5 seasons, I believe here, he has played with the Miami Dolphins. And so, 4 seasons. So the last 4 seasons, he's been with the Miami Dolphins. And so last year, played in 17 games. He had 11 total tackles. He had 5 solos. He had 6 assists. As far as his career high, as far as tackles are concerned, he had 60 in 2018, had 37 solos and 23 assists there. As far as sacks, he's got 2 career sacks and 2 forced fumbles and 1 forced fumble recovery, and he has 1 INT here. And so, I think that this is an interesting move in picking up Duke Rowley, and I kind of have to circle back to what Dan Quinn was talking about in his presser, I believe, post-game there, when he was asked, I think, about the linebackers, and he said that, look, he wanted to see, I think, some more plays being made out there with the linebacking core and wanted to see the rotations and stuff like that too. And so, I wonder, if that kind of played a factor into going out here and signing Duke Rowley. And so let's see what happens. Does he start to really get into, a pretty solid role with this team? I definitely think that the Washington Commanders are certainly looking, for somebody to pop here at that linebacker position. And so let's see what happens with Duke Rowley. And so this is the latest here with the roster. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and push into just the key standouts from today's practice here. And so there were several. And so if you guys want to read about this, you can go over to AZ Sports, where I saw some of this stuff, and then also to commanders.com, both of those giving us some insights as to what happened here in practice. And so the first thing that definitely everybody is talking about is that Jayden Daniels and Deebo Samuel continue to have a very good connection. In fact, they had a touchdown on the 7-on-7s, and so that was good to see. Yet again, that connection continues to be strong. And I just think that they need to get Terry McLaurin out there. I think that that is going to take that connection up just that much more higher. I just feel like that the offense gets that more dynamic. And so we'll see. But these guys are on the same page right now, and they are humming, which is a great thing. Next thing that I also was able to see is it looks like that Marshawn Lattimore and then also too Trey Amos had a very good day. And so with Trey Amos once again showing his ability to just break up passes and things like that. So it looks like that he ended practice very well with getting a breakup here. It was a pass to Luke McCaffrey, but still he continues to show just the flashes that he is definitely, I think, a starting corner in the National Football League. And I continue to keep saying this. I mean, I just think that the way that he's playing in year one, he just looks like a player that has been in the league for 3, 4, 5 seasons here. So I am just really impressed with the poise that we are seeing from Trey Amos. And I love the fact that he gives you the swagger, just going back to the incomplete pass that he forced there in that preseason game, and then just giving the crowd the seatbelt sign. I love that. So I think that this is what this defense needs. They need this type of juice. And so it's good to see that he's practicing well. He's going to have another big test here against those Cincinnati receivers. Let's see if they do go throw Jamar Chase and T. Higgins out there. I can't wait to see what he's going to look like. And then going into Marshawn Lattimore. And so from what I'm seeing with Marshawn Lattimore, it looks like that he was showing that he can still be the Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints out there. And so it looks like that he had a ton of breakups out there today, staying with wide receivers and just looking very solid out there. And so it was good to see here with Marshawn Lattimore looking solid, because I do think that he is going to have a much better season this year. I don't take, a whole bunch of, stock into what happened last season. I think that that was just more of just him being injured, the timing, having to come in, learn the defense, and just kind of getting thrown into a situation. And so I think now having a full training camp with the team, understanding the scheme and everything else, I think he's going to have a much, much better season. And so it's good to see that he had a great practice here as he continues to ramp up. Another note was that Matt Gay, 4 of 5. He did hit a 50 plus. I believe that it did say that he missed a 38 yarder. I think that's what it said there. Then the next thing, too, that I did see, I believe this was on commanders.com, where it was Jalen Lane and Austin Eckler. They made great blocks to, I guess, spring Deebo Samuel on a play as well. So that was good to see, because it is about, not just going out there and what you can do with the football, but you've got to be able to do the other things. And so, when I think of a player like Jalen Lane going down and making these type of plays. And I know it's just, a note in this practice, but I think of one of the better wide receivers in the National Football League that was good at blocking. And I think of Antron Randall, which actually played for the Washington franchise at one point too, after he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I love to hear this, about Jalen Lane being able to go down there and make, contact, or obviously get in the play to, help spring a teammate open. And so again, remember, they weren't in pads today, but this is good to hear it. So with that being said, that is today's update and just really the standouts from today's practice. And so you guys let me know in the comments here, what was the biggest key takeaway out of practice for you? Was it the fact that the secondary is showing that they have a ton of juice here? Was it Deebo Samuel and the connection that continues to get even better here with Jayden Daniels? Is it that Jayden Daniels seems like that he's definitely already taken a step forward and we have not seen him play in an actual game? Is it that it's Mikey Samra still who is turning into a leader? And also, too, he's been making a ton of plays out there in training camp as well. Or was it Coach Quinn and his comments just talking about just how this team is looking to refocus now and get back to the standards after a tough preseason loss? Love to hear what your thoughts are about that. And then let me know what you guys are thinking here with these recent roster moves in Duke Riley being signed to the linebacker core, and then also, too, unfortunately, losing Lucas Niang for the year. So as we always say here, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.